Okay, today I want to get off my chest my feelings about the neurologist's stance on disease-modifying drugs. When I first got diagnosed, I was given a DVD and a little booklet that described 4 drugs that I could be taking, and the theory behind taking these drugs was it would prevent me from getting worse. It wouldn't make me better than what I currently was. I would retain the level of disability that I'd reached, but by taking these drugs I was potentially prolonging my ability. Even then they were quite honest about the fact that it was only effective in about 30% of people who took the drugs. So there was a 70% chance that I would be injecting myself with basically what would amount to a placebo for me. And there was a small chance that by taking them I would prolong my mobility. Well, those drugs' effectiveness was based on studies that followed a 2-year process where they just looked at the idea that if we could prevent new lesions from forming due to MS in our central nervous system, then obviously this was going to prolong our abilities. There's been a chance now for scientists to do long-term studies on these drugs. And what they've proven this summer, 3 different studies come out from different areas of the world, and all of them came to the same conclusion, that there is no statistical difference between not taking disease-modifying drugs and taking them. Everybody in the studies, all 3 studies, came out with about a range of 15 to 18 years before the average person with MS would reach the level of using a cane. Obviously some of us reach that a lot quicker, some of us a lot longer, but average, everyone with MS, regardless of what they're taking, the average is 15 to 18 years. So what the medical community has been doing about this has been basically keeping silent. There's been no statements from the MS Society about these studies. There's been no calls from neurologists to people about, the fact that these studies have come out and maybe we should look at these studies and decide for ourselves whether we want to continue with these drugs or whether we'd like to stop. I personally stopped very quickly after starting these drugs because I couldn't handle injecting myself every day with the thought that I was doing it for nothing. And just the horrendous expense that they were making people go to pay for these drugs. And that's another thing, is that with these studies coming out, that there's statistically no difference between taking them and not taking them. And the fact that people are still paying for them. And by this, I'm not talking about the individuals, because these drugs are so expensive. There is no way that an individual could pay for these prescriptions. What's currently happening is that people are getting funding from their insurance companies if they're lucky, and if not, from the government to help pay for them. People on disability are usually getting full coverage for these drugs. People who aren't on disability, still their families are receiving the provincial equivalent of Trillium, which here in Ontario is the catastrophic drug coverage. So if your drug costs are to the point of bankrupting your family, you can apply for this and they help subsidize. So what the government's doing is subsidizing drugs that don't work on the taxpayer's dime, and refusing to fund a procedure which could cost far less and actually has shown some benefit in symptoms as well as potential benefit in prolonging mobility. I think this is hypocritical, and I don't think it's very fair. I think that the words that they keep using about this procedure is that it's unstudied, unproven, needs to go through clinical trials. And what I'm thinking right now is that the drugs that the neurologists are pushing on us are proven to be ineffective, have gone through clinical trials, and proven to not work the way that they were promised to work. They're proven to cause liver damage as one of their big side effects, and yet we're still being asked to take them as MS patients and as Canadian taxpayers to fund them. And I don't think that the hypocrisy has been dealt with in those instances. But I'm not a doctor, I'm not an economist, I don't understand why we'd rather pay $20,000 to $40,000 a year in drug coverages that don't work as opposed to $2,000 to $3,000 for a procedure that has the same chance right now of working. But again, I'm probably just, got the facts and figures wrong because I don't work for Big Pharma. So.